Morning, calling to order the May 6th, 2026 regular board meeting of Marin County Employees Retirement Association. Mr. Administrator, would read the polling.
Trustee Cooper,
Here.
trustee Helway.
Here.
Trustee Martinovich,
Here.
trustee Poole,
Here.
trustee Robbie is absent, trustee Silverstein,
Here.
trustee Vasquez is absent, trustee Villa,
Here.
trustee Werby,
Here.
trustee Healy,
Here.
trustee Jones is not here, trustee Shaw. Mr. Chair, all members of the board are present except for trustees Robbie, Vasquez, and currently Jones.
Then I understand that no one has requested a teleconference.
Nobody's requested teleconference. That's correct.
Bringing us to the minutes of the March 18th Investment Committee. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes?
So moved, Cooper.
Second by Silverstein to approve minutes.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Mr. Chair, the motion to adopt the March 18th, 2026 Investment Committee meeting minutes passes unanimously 7-0. Trustee Robbie and trustee Vasquez absent.
Then we have the April 8th, 2026 board meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes?
Yes.
Ms. Gado?
Are you making a motion?
Yes.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second.
Silverstein will second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Mr. Chair, the motion to adopt the April 8th, 2026 board meeting minutes passes unanimously 7-0. Trustee Robbie and trustee Vasquez absent.
We have open time for public expression. Do you have any members of the public that would like to address us at this time? Leading us to the administrator's report.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. A few items to report. As you know, this is the busiest time of year for us. We have the most number of retirements that really occur in the months of February, March, and April because people are retiring to receive the April 1st COLA. This year, we added 27 new retirements in April. That compares to 37 last year, so down a little bit, although for the period of February through April, we had 45 in total. So people retiring before, pretty high number. Last year, that was 50 during those 3 periods of time. Our average number of retirements during this period for the last 10 years is about 34.5 retirements. So every year, it's about a third of the retirements all happen in this 3-month period of time. It's by far the busiest time of the year for our benefits team, and want to thank Anya and her staff for the work they have to get everybody on payroll and set up and ready to go. Oh, and I always forget this to say, not only are we setting people up, then we're also getting ready to do the April COLA too. So we get people set up and then apply all the COLA, not only to the new retirees, but all of the existing retirees. So it's a double amount of workload that happens during this period of time. One of the business objectives that you have for the retirement administrator this year is to conduct an assessment of our benefit management system. As you know, we've had this system, CPAS, now since 2011, a long time, 15 years. It's served us well, but we also want to begin moving more into self-service, member portal, those types of things. And before we go into that, we really want to know where we're at with this system. And this is the project that we've mentioned to take a look at it. We've seen other systems that have done, other CERLs that have done similar types of benefit assessments. And so we've engaged the Siegel Group to conduct this assessment. One of the reasons why we hired the Siegel Group is they did a similar assessment for San Diego County Employees Retirement Association. San Diego also uses CPAS, and they've used it for a little bit less than us, so similar system. We talked to them about the work that Siegel did, and they were pleased with it and happy with the recommendations that came out. So we've entered in an agreement for them to come in and begin doing that work. We'll obviously report the results of the assessment to the board or through the Finance and Risk Management Committee with any recommendations that we have going forward. But I'll pause there and see if there's any questions.
Is there any reason to believe that they would come up with a different answer for us than they did for San Diego?
Yes, because every CERL is unique, which means every benefit management system, the way it operates, is unique. It's customized for every system. There's no such thing as an off-the-shelf system that will work uniquely for all the CERLs. San Diego went through a extensive validation process of running the system in parallel for multiple months, not just 1 month. And so, you know, they had different types of requirements they're putting in. I think we were at the point of putting in much more of a base system for ourselves and then saying, let's worry about bells and whistles later on. So I do think it's the same company and the same software, but different business approaches to it. So I do think it's possible they'll come up with different records.
So do I understand that they did in fact change?
They did not change. They
When you
did
think
not
right in
change.
Parallel, that usually means that they're running two systems.
No, when I say parallel, they were running their old system and their new system at the same time.
At implementation
At implementation, when
of CPAS. And now the project was to evaluate CPAS and determine whether they would stay with it or go out. But besides just evaluating the system, the goal of the project is to receive recommendations, which will be both on the technical side for different processes that they do. So don't just look at the system, but also how we do business. So both technical and the business improvement recommendations, which will be very detailed. So it's
yeah, I apologize. The parallel was when they went live with CPAS. They ran their old system and their new systems at the same time to see how and to see whether they were producing the same.
They weren't on CPAS before?
No, they were not. They
Oh,
had
so
a
they went
different
to
software
CPAS.
system.
Oh.
Yes.
The expected results from hiring this consultant is on the technical and business requirement. Is it also gonna talk anything about methodology of procurement, or that's for later?
No, this is not about procurement. If the results of the assessment from our perspective, because I think that's our assessment based on what they tell us, if the results of that is we think we need to go into a procurement, then we'll come back to you and have a separate procurement discussion. Because there would be a lot to that. That's not where we're headed to with this.
it's very narrow scope.
It's, does the system meet our needs as we move to these self-service modules? How will they function? How important is it that we do the system upgrade that CPAS wants us to try to do? How critical is that for us? But it's not about changing systems.
Would that be at the board level, or is we have a committee that would handle
Which part, the procurement?
it? If we were, if we were to.
So when I got here and you were in the midst of CPAS implementation, there was an ad hoc committee the board had formed to oversee the implementation. So you could certainly do that again. And I think that's a fair.
We'll be also working with CPAS as a vendor to look at the functionality that maybe we're not using that's available to us. That's another area we'll explore.
I assume that the consultant is familiar with those
Yes.
capabilities.
Yes.
Yes. As well as other systems that they benchmark against.
As you all know, we have a custodian, the custodian is State Street Bank. A couple of years ago, we entered into a new agreement with them for 3 years. Can't believe it's already been 3 years. So the 3-year agreement is actually up in July. Our current agreement does have 2 one-year extensions, however. So I've initiated one of the 1-year extensions. There's no change in the cost for the services. It's just extending the agreement out from July of 2026 now to July of 2027. There is still 1 more extension available within the current. Just a reminder that the spring Sackers conference is next week. Trustees Cooper, Healy, Vila, and I will be attending. Also, for those of you that may be interested, the M-Care barbecue, spring barbecue is next week up at Stafford Lake. Staff will be going, but I know the M-Care always likes to see board members. So if any of you are interested in going, please let me know. And I will communicate that with them. And then the last item is we conducted our annual cybersecurity training with staff this week. So at Linear Security, something very similar to what you saw, but we spent about an hour on that last week. Those are my administrator updates, staffing update. We have the 1 vacancy that I've previously mentioned, which is still on hold. Facility use, nothing to report. Future meetings, the workshop is May 27th, which is a Wednesday. Finance and risk management meets on June 3rd, and the next board meeting will be June 10th. And that's my administrator. Happy to answer any questions the board may have.
So that leads us to the standing committee reports, and we have the governance committee.
Yes, the governance committee met last week, April 29th, 2026. We reviewed the proxy voting reports for the fourth quarter of last year, 2025, and the first quarter of 2026. During those two quarters, about 300 companies that we are invested in had shareholder meetings. So we reviewed the votes that were done by ISS for us, our DFA and State Street US accounts, as well as votes done by the managers who are voting, were doing the voting for us, Fidelity, KBI, Times Square. In those, those two quarters were when their US shareholder meetings take place, there are only 300. The current quarter, which is not covered in this report, there are many more. And the next quarter more. So 6 months from now, there will be not, probably 3,000 to review in those reports. We are voting against the CEO pay packages of approximately 55% of the companies. And that's done through ISS using the public fund policy and a custom modification of it. And the other managers are voting very similar. There are several companies that are held in that we hold through different managers. For example, AECOM, Deere, and Johnson Controls. So we can look at how we voted, ABI voted on those companies, and it's very similar. We also looked at the governance risk reports. These are companies that ISS has determined are not, the governance structure is not optimal according to the standards that we have here. Mostly these are companies which are very highly controlled by the management as opposed to the shareholders. The most famous of these companies is Tesla and Oracle. We have very small amounts in those companies, except for Tesla, which of course is the biggest companies in the industry. We then went to review policies. There are several new policies that we reviewed. One is for electronic signatures. So what is our policy in accepting signatures electronically as opposed to handwritten in person? That policy is in your board packet. It's on page 88. Page there. The committee recommends that the full board adopt this policy.
And once again, as a reminder, since it's coming from the committee and the chair, there's no need for a motion or a second. You can move directly to discussion.
But we should do that one at a time.
You should do these each one at a time. Yes, correct.
Okay. You want to describe to us what the new policy is, if there's, or what changes?
Well, there's no changes. It's just allowing us to begin to develop procedures as to how to accept electronic signatures. So staff will develop procedures to make sure that things are going well, that there's no fraud and so on in there, starting with sort of the least consequential documents and then moving later on to more consequential.
I can add that currently we don't accept electronic signatures for any forms. So this policy would allow us to move forward with the process and select a vendor. And as long as it meets the criteria that's outlined in the law, we can proceed with that vendor implementing the electronic signature policy, and most well-established vendors provide or process that will meet the criteria.
So is it my understanding that we don't currently have a electronic signature policy? This is a.
This
new
is a
policy.
brand new, all, the next four are all brand
Brand
new
new.
policies. They may come from other places, and we'll explain that. This one, though, is brand new. This doesn't exist anywhere else in any other form.
Everyone had a chance to review the policy, any discussion? All in favor?
Mr. Chair, the motion to adopt the recommendation from the governance committee to adopt the electronic signature policy passes unanimously 7-0 with trustees Vasquez and Robbie absent.
So the next new policy is the delegation and oversight policy. And what's in this policy is basically a consolidation of things that are in other policies that we have, trying to move all of these oversight and delegation things into one policy so that we systematically view the whole thing as rather than scattered in various other policies. So there's no real change in the policy. It's just moving paragraphs so that it's all consolidated. One.
Yes, so trustee Silverstein described this perfectly. So this is a new policy, but everything that is in this policy currently exists in resolutions. So remember that all of your policies, official policies, have a schedule for when they are going to be reviewed by your governance committee. Your resolutions don't have those schedules. So we felt that it was, one, important to capture all of the authorizations that you've provided into a single place, which then also gives them the advantage of having a regular review schedule by the governance committee and therefore by it. So there's nothing that's expanded any previous authorizations.
So the committee recommends that the board adopt. Let's see.
Has everyone had a chance to review those, the new policy that incorporates all those resolutions? And if so, is there a motion?
You don't need a motion.
Oh, he
That's right.
recommended it.
Any discussion, sorry. All in favor?
Chair, the motion to adopt the recommendation from the governance committee to adopt the delegation and oversight policy passes unanimously 7-0. Trustee Robbie and trustee Vasquez absent.
The next one is the disability retirement policy and procedures, which again is an attempt to consolidate in one place all of the various policies and procedures that are now in place so that we can have a review of them. They'll be regularly reviewed. Some of these things are in our bylaws right now, and we don't regularly review our bylaws. So now we'll take them out of the bylaws so that we have again in one place and that we will review them on a periodic basis according to the calendar. So the committee recommends that we adopt this new policy, which just consolidates things and moves stuff basically out of the bylaws into this policy.
Any discussion? I have a quick question. At the very end, I noticed that there's a thing about electronic signatures. That duplicative or in place of the other thing on electronic signatures is part 13 on page 140 of the package.
So that is in the next item, bylaws.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I get ahead of myself?
Just by 2, yes.
Okay. It seemed long. All right, we'll get there when we get there. All in favor?
Mr. Chair, the motion to adopt the disability retirement policy and procedure as recommended by the governance committee passes unanimously 7-0 with trustee Robbie and trustee Vasquez absent.
The next policy is the payment of retiree benefits during the month that the retiree passes. So, this just states what our current practice is, that retiree.
So let me, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So currently, when a retiree passes away in the month, we prorate the benefit. So we pay everybody at the end of the month. And if somebody dies on the 10th, we figure out what should they have only gotten for the 1st through the 10th. Now we've already paid them, so it means we have to try to recover what we paid from the family and then issue a new payment for only what they were entitled for. What this policy says is we will pay for the full month. So if the person dies on the 10th, they still get the full month. If they died on the 30th, they still get the full month of benefit. So we would no longer prorate the benefit. About 10 of the Searles are doing this currently. 9 of the Searles. It's evenly split. 10 still prorate, but 10 are no longer prorate. It has a couple of aspects to it that we talked to the committee about. One, it has no financial impact on the system because your actuary assumes that people get their full month benefit when they die. So there is no cost. Our first thing is make sure there's no cost implication by doing this. There's no cost impact because the cost that the actuary builds in assumes all benefit payments are full. Second, there is certainly an administrative aspect to not just the proration, but recovering the payment. And remember also that most of our members, when they retire, choose what's known as the unmodified option, which means if they have a surviving spouse, the surviving spouse gets a continuous. So we turn around and prorate it and then turn around and pay them almost the same amount back again. So there's a substantial amount of administrative time that goes into this to try to recover the payments, prorate the payments. That ends up costing us money. That's not the reason for doing it. The reason for doing it is because it doesn't provide a difference. We're assuming that they've earned the right to the benefit because they've already earned all of their service for retirement. So it is changing from proration to not prorating, paying the full benefit. That's fundamentally what it's doing.
Okay, I'll disagree with the notion that it's free lunch because we know there is no such thing as free lunch. It doesn't change the calculation, but if we didn't do it the other way, we would have a little bit more.
The actuary, when they build in the contribution rates,
I understood what you said.
but then there's no cost
Well,
to the
I
plan.
didn't say it's not a free lunch. If we would have more money available than what the actuary provides if we were to pay a little bit less out. I'm not saying it's even material. It's just there's no such thing as free lunch, right?
The cost of recovering the amount can sometimes outweigh.
Far
all the
outweighs
additional
anything that we pay. We spend more administrative time trying to recover a couple of $100 than we ever would save in any of the money.
But those are fixed costs.
They're cost to the plan and they take away from benefits. So if your argument is there's not enough money for benefits, so then we may have more expenses, there's not as much money for benefits.
Any discussion?
I think also we should look at the fact that you're gonna turn around and pay them back.
That's,
survivor
I think ultimately it happens in most cases. We collect the money, turn around and it should.
I'm not arguing that we shouldn't do it.
No, but I understand 100% what you're saying, but I thought of it too, but I think for me, it
Most
wasn't worth
cases.
it.
And from the legal perspective, just as sort of reasonable minds may have this discussion about cost on both sides of this, so too on the legal perspective, reasonable minds may understand the Searle provisions on this in somewhat different ways from one another. And my conclusion on this is that you weren't doing it incorrectly before, so it doesn't require a correction of your prior practice. But that there is a reasonable basis within the statute to apply it in this manner prospectively.
So we don't owe people back for
No redoing, no reopening old files. Yeah.
right. Any further discussion?
So we obviously discussed this extensively as we did in committee. And the committee recommends that the board adopt this new policy.
All in favor?
Mr. Chair, the motion to adopt the recommendation from the committee to adopt the payment of retiree benefits during the month of death passes unanimously, 7-0. Trustees Robbie and trustees Vasquez absent.
the next item that the committee considered is the bylaws. As we talked about earlier, we're moving into policies, some things that were in the bylaws. So obviously we need to change our bylaws. And a couple of other minor things, correcting an address, government code numbers, and so on. So this is all part of this general cleanup here. And the committee recommends that the board adopt these changes through the bylaw. There is some discussion that this might have to go before the county board supervisors, because they're the ones that ultimately approve our bylaws. So our administrator will discuss this with the members of the Board of Supervisors, county administrator, and necessary, we will then put this before the county as well.
The SERL currently requires that bylaws or changes by the Retirement Association or the adoption of bylaws have to be approved by the County Board of Supervisors. So if you make changes to the bylaws, they have to go back to the Board of Supervisors for adoption.
So are we recommending the Board of Supervisors allow us to adopt this, or are we adopting them subject to the review of the Board of Supervisors? How does this work?
I think that this is the discussion I want to have with them. I think this is ministerial. Okay, so you're going to adopt the change today and it's going to be in effect and they'll ratify that.
Fair enough.
That's the word I would use without trying to create problems.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Mr. Chair, the motion to adopt the committee's recommendations or the changes to the bylaws passes unanimously 7-0 with Trustee Robbie and Trustee Vasquez absent.
Okay, now moving on to some existing policies where we did the standard review with a couple of updates to each one. So the first one is the conflict of interest code. And so in this one, we are adding digital assets, cryptocurrencies, and so on into the list of items that people need to be concerned about in looking for conflicts of interest. So the committee recommends that the board adopt this change to the conflict of interest policy.
Want to do this one at a time or all?
Yes,
Okay.
also one at a time.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Mr. Chair, the motion to adopt the recommended changes to the conflict of interest code policy passes unanimously 7-0. Trustee Robbie, Trustee Vasquez absent.
So the next policy is the actuarial funding policy. So this one relates to the number of years left to amortize our unfunded liability from the 2008 crash. So, as you know, we amortize this over a number of years. Each year we've amortized a little bit more of it, so there are less years remaining to amortize it. So we're just updating the policy here to reflect that instead of 14 years, it's now 13. This amount. So the committee recommends that we adopt this change to the policy.
Any discussion?
So, Mr. Chair, just one note, this language mirrors what's in the current actuarial valuation. So these are dates changed and
I
they're
know,
in our
but-
policy, so we have to change our policy. So you're going to see this every
Year we're going to choose.
until you get it to
We get to zero.
0. Correct.
All in favor?
The motion, Mr. Chair, the motion to adopt the changes to the actuarial funding policy recommended by the committee passed unanimously 7-0. Trustee Robbie, Trustee Vasquez absent.
So the next policy is the actuarial economic assumptions that we make. So, each year we make economic assumptions, what the inflation rate is going to be, and so on. And so the policy indicates the date of when this assumption takes effect. And so we want to just update the policy to indicate that it takes effect this year. Because the policy currently was for last year. There's no change to any of the economic assumptions that we're making, inflation rate, and so on and so forth. So just updating the date to continue the policies for another year. So the committee recommends that we adopt this change to the actuarial economic assumptions.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Mr. Chair, the motion to adopt the recommendation to adopt the changes to the actuarial policy regarding adoption of actuarial economic assumptions passes unanimously. 7-0, trustee Robbie, trustee Vasquez absent.
And the last existing policy, which we are making a change to, or we're recommending a change to, is our portable electronic device policy. So our portable electronic devices, such as the iPads, which we all have, if you lose this, you need to report this to the administrator so that it can be shut down, as it were. If you think you lost it, but you still lying around somewhere in your house, people right now don't have to report it, only when you have determined that it's actually out of your control. So the change in the policy here is for you to report this as soon as you have any suspicion that it's out of control. Maybe you'll find it in a day or two or so on, rather than waiting a day or two to report this so that the protective measures can be taken in case it really is lost, stolen. We want you to report this as soon as you have any suspicion that is. So this is just a matter of increasing the cybersecurity. So the committee recommends that the board adopt this change to the portable electronic device.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Mr. Chair, the motion to adopt the recommended change to the portable device policy passes unanimously, 7-0, trustee Robbie, trustee Vasquez.
And now there are two policies where we reviewed and we are not recommending any changes. We just want to know that we've reviewed them. They are the policy regarding the implementation of the felony forfeiture laws and the proxy voting policy. So the committee recommends that we accept the review of these existing policies.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Mr. Chair, the motion to accept the policy for implementation of felony forfeiture and the proxy voting and corporate governance policy with no changes passes unanimously, 7-0, with trustee Vasquez and trustee Robbie absent.
Well, the chair would like to thank the governance committee for the work on this. It's obviously a fair amount involved, and well done.
Thank you.
We have a time certain, so we're going to jump to the disability consent agenda. First one is the case of Kevin Beardsley, service-connected disability with a recommendation to grant effective October 1st, 2025.
So that is the staff recommendation to the board, that you grant the service-connected disability for Kevin Beardsley effective October 1st, 2025.
Silverstein will make the motion to grant with that effective date.
I'll be second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Mr. Chair, the motion to grant the service-connected disability Kevin Beardsley effective October 1st, 2025 passes unanimously, 7-0, with trustee Robbie and trustee Vasquez absent.
And then we have the case of David Barkus, a service-connected disability with an effective date of July 27th, 2025, with a recommendation from staff to grant.
So move Cooper.
Second by Silverstein.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Mr. Chair, the motion to grant the service-connected disability to David Barkus effective July 27th, 2025 passes unanimously, 7-0 with trustee Robbie and trustee Vasquez absent.
Then we're going back to trustee comments. The Callan Institute, was I the only person to
You were,
have
you were
attended?
apologize. Both trustee Robbie and I were going to go, but ended up not attending.
Well, you know, some interesting discussions. The first one of note was from I'm not seeing on the list, but it was a on geopolitics. I'm not seeing it. Anyway, geopolitics has become apparently it was always in there in the risks that everybody thought about, but it was we sort of buried way down because we had pretty stable world. That's no longer the case. It's all of a sudden become, you know, at the height of everybody's consciousness, you know, what these risks are. He pointed out that that China, for example, gets 30% of its oil between Iran and Venezuela. That's been cut off. You can't cut off countries, you know, 30% of a country's oil without having some significant effects. And they feel it and they're not happy about it. There's questions now whether active management is going to start to outperform passive. How public versus private markets. Liquidity, they're recommending that the stress test be embedded for all analysis for pension funds. Of course, technology and AI. And AI, they say, has been up till now has been focused on productivity and efficiency, and is about to start working on decision making, which is a profound change. General Stanley McChrystal was a very interesting speaker. He says that the military is going to have to rethink its development and procurement of next generation weapons. He sort of makes the point that manned weapons are no longer make any sense because the unmanned stuff is much cheaper and faster to deliver and doesn't involve killing, you know, pilots. So it's seems to be the way of the future. He definitely regrets that politics has now entered the military, and that has the potential of going very badly. And he says the whole notion of this, you know, the Superman being the soldier of the future is silly because we do very, very little hand-to-hand combat. In fact, he says that most of the jobs in the Pentagon could be done by somebody in a wheelchair. So the idea of military might being muscles is out of date. Capital markets discussion, because Europe has some better opportunities, but since it's so much smaller, they're very limited. Everyone's looking at private credit, but he points out if private credit blows up, it all of a sudden becomes private equity. And the managers of private credit are not necessarily able to handle the private equity, which is a whole different skill set. Private equity involves running a company. Private credit involves, you know, buying debt. So it's a very different skill set, and we'll see what happens if that blows up. Chris Wray, with the former FBI director, gave a speech which was interesting. Obviously focused on cyber, and we know that they've improved their capabilities, and we're trying to improve ours to keep up. But he made the point that now AI can call up a help desk and get access. They're good enough that they can, you know, get the help desk to help them, you know, restart their code. In effect, give them the credentials to sign in, which is pretty scary. because if an attack happens, it's important to ask yourself, how long have they been in there? What have they gotten? What did they look at? And how vulnerable are they to your vendors and to your partners? They've changed their focus, by the way. The cyber criminals are getting smarter, and they're changing their focus to entities that can pay large amounts of money and need to be operational very quick, back operational very quickly, like hospitals, utilities, those kind of things that have a real need to be back up running. There was a discussion about what's the best measure for private market performance, because as we invest more in private markets, it's like you compare them against public markets or other private markets. They have a thing that they like, the Cambridge thing at the end of the market. The Cambridge benchmark is what they like at the end of the day, saving you a long thing. Mark Blythe gave a very interesting. It was a I think matter of fact, I think I pulled out this from the top from the first one, but he was like a fire hose, where it was one of those things where just a lot coming out at that thing. He sort of made an argument that the current administration is picking up its foreign policy from Project 2025, which I've never read Project 2025, and no one else has either, apparently. But it really divides up the world into these geo powers, and ours would be the whole Americas, and that seems to be if there is if it's not a stated goal, if there is a logical goal, that seems to be it, and it's largely based on making us into a petro state. And he points out that all the tariff deals that were made by the administration involved a commitment from them to buy large quantities of oil from us, which is sort of strange if you're not, if it, other than that. He pointed out that 70% of Americans think that more manufacturing should be done in the United States, and 10% of Americans want to work in a factory. So there's an imbalance there, possibly addressed by automation. But that doesn't help, the employment situation, which seems to be the goal. And he points out that long-term rates are not determined by the Fed, rather by global investors. So whatever kind of pressure he wants to put on the Fed, it may not work. And then there was discussion about generational research, which is just interesting because she made the point that different generations look at the world very, very differently. For everyone probably most of the people sitting at this table, we think about NASA and we think about Apollo. But for people of the younger generation, they think about Challenger. So it's a very different mindset, and that goes through their entire investment career and their investment criteria, and it makes a big difference. In 1994, for example, people spent 0 time on screens, and now they spend about 7 hours a day looking at screens. The cost of a year of education at that point has gone double in that kind of time. So it's a very significant changes between from generation to generation, and it comes through. And that's what I learned. Were there any other? We didn't have any other scheduled. Did anyone else have anything that they wanted to add or discuss? All right. Then moving to new business. The investment management fee interest determination.
Okay, you have in your packets a memo for me. I'm just going to highlight the key things out of this. So back in December of 2023, the investment committee decided that you wanted to have a passive international index investment. And at that time, you hired State Street Global Advisors, and the fund that you selected was their MSCI World ex-US fund. At the investment committee meeting, it was presented to you that the fee for that fund would be 1.25 basis points. Converted to a percentage, that should be 0.0125. We discovered in April, after talking with State Street, that the actual fee that was being charged to us and that we had paid was not 1.25, but 12.5. In other words, 0.125 instead of 0.0125. That resulted in us paying State Street since inception of this fund, which was in 2024, a little over $822,000 when we should have paid only a little over $70,000. So State Street will be paying us back a little over $751,000 for the overpayment. And they have proposed that they would provide interest on that payment of a little over $69,000 for a total repayment to us of about over $820,000. The methodology that they used for the calculation of the interest is a methodology that's contained within the Internal Revenue Code for overpayments of benefits and expenses. It's a methodology. We're not bound by that, but it's certainly one that they used. That methodology, and we've looked at it, results in interest rates over the 2-year period of between 6 and 8%. The interest was compounded, and we checked that calculation to determine that the interest was compounded during the period of time. So the payment amount obviously has to be repaid. The interest amount and how much that is something that we're bringing to you. If you want to discuss, staff's recommendation is that you accept that amount, and we will deposit that money back into our cash fund. The payment of management fees was invoiced to us, so it wasn't subtracted out of the fee return. It was invoiced, and we paid it separately from our cash account. So it's not like some of the other management fees where they subtract it from the fund, which would have a different type of impact on it. It was cash that we paid, so we would put it back into cash. Just as a reminder, we use our cash account to pay benefits. That's the number one thing. Also expenses. And we also use that cash to pay your private market commitments that you've made, private equity. And if you get to private credit, we'll use it for private credit also. So that's the recommendation. I'm also further recommending that we would move this matter to Finance and Risk here at the beginning of June for a discussion with them about more detail about this and controls that we need to have in place. We've made changes to controls, but we think that it's appropriate to talk to Finance and Risk about this and have a detailed discussion there and make sure there is nothing that staff is not missing, and also answer any questions that that committee has. Anything obviously that committee discusses comes back to the full board also.
Can you repeat who discovered there?
State Street discovered it during a review of the fee.
Okay, is our action today is there any legal ramification, like meaning they're out in the clear? Is there any possible penalties? How things works in this case? And if we accept their proposal, meaning we're closing the case.
So we did look at that topic. There is no Internal Revenue Code required submission nor penalty, which is different from if we're an ERISA plan. We're as a governmental plan, that doesn't apply to this type of correction. And in terms of the other legal aspects of this, our conclusion is by receiving the full payment plus a reasonable rate of interest on it within the ranges presented to you today, that you should be able to resolve the issue completely.
I'm taking this too far, but those monies that but I think you answered that because they billed us, so we paid it outside of the fund, meaning we cannot calculate how much we missed gross on that amount. if it was, and
Yeah, so it's, nothing is outside the fund. Everything is in the fund.
Okay.
It was in our cash account. Our cash account gets interest. It gets about 4% interest on a monthly
Got it.
basis.
Okay.
And we confirmed with State Street during the 2 months or 2 years, what was the return rate during those periods? And it was about a little over 4% for both 2024 and 2025.
If it was invested, that would be different calculation. at that point.
But your assumed rate of return, which is what you would expect to return, is 6.75. And so our view was what they've proposed as calculated by staff, which is the 6 to 8% compounded. And it is roughly similar to that, so that it seems to us to pass legal muster.
And you're proposing to the risk investment to
Risk and
have
finance.
like a systematic, maybe.
Yes, there's an operational component to this. And we need to have that operational component. But there's the financial component, which I want to settle by getting our money back, plus money on top of our money, which I want to resolve. And we also need to amend our agreement with them to correct the fee, because the fee was listed incorrectly in the agreement and I signed it. So I own this error. It's on me that I missed the fact that in the agreement it was wrong. All right. So we need to correct the agreement and get the payment back into our fund so we have the money. But there is an operational discussion that needs to happen. How did this happen? How did you discover it? All of those questions. I think
Guardrails.
finance and what are you doing? What are you proposing to do to not have this happen again? I think that is the discussion that should be at the Risk and Finance Committee.
Trustee Cooper.
That was what I was going to ask about.
Any other questions? This is an action item.
So Silverstein will move that we accept the recommendation here to accept the payment as outlined here with the interest as they have calculated.
Second by Vila.
Any discussion?
And so with that interest payment that they are offering, what is the rate of return calculated over the 4 or 5 years? Whatever?
So 2 years. So it's only because this fund's only been around since 2024, and it's only been since they started billing us, and we didn't fund them until March of 2024. So the first billing wasn't until June of 2024. So it's only been since that to the end of 2025. Once again, the IRS methodology that they used was a rate between 6 and 8%. 8% for the longer periods of time, then it ramps to 6.
It's a table that's provided in the IRS, on the IRS website for the specific correction.
Oh, I see.
And it was quarterly interest, whether it was 6, 7, 8, that's why we give you a range, not every quarter number.
Our own work in looking at it and looking at the period, what we believe is that the composite rate over that period is a little over 7%
If we average.
if we averaged it and then compound.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Mr. Chair, the motion to accept the interest payment as proposed passes unanimously, 7-0. Trustee Robbie and Trustee Vasquez absent.
Now the Sackers voting day.
So the Sackers business meeting will be on the last day of the conference on May 15th. We need to designate a delegate to attend that meeting and vote for the one action item. Your options for delegates are Trustees Cooper, Healy, Vila, or the administrator. We need a delegate and an alternate in case something happens to
Any volunteers?
who would like to be the alternate. Great. So you just need a motion and a second.
That's we need.
I'll move to put myself as the delegate. Business meeting and
Chris
Cooper as the alternate.
Actually, could you make that Healy just in case something happens to me on Thursday night?
Oh, okay.
Think that'd be smarter.
Amending my motion, me as the primary, Healy as the alternate.
Second.
Silverstein will second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Chair the motion to designate Trustee Villa as the delegate to the business meeting, and trustee Healy is the alternate, passes unanimously 7-0 with trustees Robbie and Vasquez absent.
The business meeting agenda connection.
So the good news is that there is only one item on the business meeting, and you've already decided this item. You decided it at the April 8th board meeting that you would support the Sackers nominating committee's recommended slate of officers. So your motion today would be to direct the voting delegate to vote in favor of the slate of officers for the 2026 board members.
Is there a motion to have the, that direction given to our delegate?
So moved, Cooper.
Second by Silverstein.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Chair, the motion to direct the delegate to vote in favor of the Sackers nominating committee slate of officers passes unanimously 7-0 with trustees Robbie and Vasquez absent.
Future meetings, are there any agenda items that any trustees would like to consider for the future meeting? So speak now or forever hold your peace.
Hold your 30 days.
The training calendar. Has everyone had a chance to review the training calendar?
And Mr. Chair, just a couple of items that we've added. The Sackers UC Berkeley investment course, which is coming up in July, is a new add, as is the Wharton Business School course at the end of this year in October. And then there were a couple of new items added for 2027 already, Wharton and the Calipers General Assembly.
If there's no discussion, we could entertain a motion.
Okay,
I'll move to adopt the training calendar.
second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Mr. Chair, the motion to adopt the training calendar passes unanimously 7-0. Trustee Robbie and trustee Vasquez absent.
Leading us to the consent calendar. Anything you'd like to point out to us on this?
The only thing I want to point out to you is that it's larger than usual because of the number of new retirees that we added in April as a result of people wanting to retire to get the April 1 COLA. That's the only item I wish to point out.
Again, this requires a motion and a second for us to leave.
Silverstein will move to accept to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Mr. Chair, the motion to adopt the training or the consent calendar, excuse me, passes unanimously 7-0. Trustee Robbie and trustee Vasquez absent.
And that concludes our work here. Thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
adjourned.